So we continue having this in mind. There is technology playing a role, and we always have to accept that the role can be different, that the weight can be different, and that we actually have different positions as well within this entire economic process. And there was a political conflict around Kondratyev. He was in Russia, Soviet Russia, where, and this is happening today again, where people say, okay, this may well be, but we are not talking about technology. We are talking about the way of organizing it. We are talking about property structures. We are talking about economic power. And you reduce everything, you reduce profit making on technology. You can't do that. And today we have a similar discussion on Kondratyev. Well, it may be that we actually don't have the discussion, but I think we have it because I'm involved in this. But there is this discussion on, it seems with this new development, new technology, it seems to be so important. Technology changes everything. We have robots, we have not mobile phones, mobile computers. We have the internet wherever we go. I came across it today again where I did not expect the internet. On my computer, actually, doing something. I thought, well, how do you get there? Some database checking another database on my computer. I don't know how it works. And of course, you have there the two sides. On the one hand, you have the technology behind it. You have to have this technology, internet and computers and networks and whatsoever. But then you have behind it, or carrying it, determining it, property structures. Because I assume some network to which I'm linked, a professional network, bought up at least a huge share of another network, which allows them to access my data without asking. This is about property, it's not about technology. So it is important to look at both. To look at reality and to look at the models with which we can analyze them. So again, don't blame me if the sheep are not correctly counted. It's another joke, an old joke supposedly, but worth repeating. A sheep farmer is tending his flock when a city slicker rolls up in his BMW, hops out and asks, hey, if I tell you exactly how many sheep you have, can I take one? The farmer nods. So the city slicker opens his laptop, calls up some satellite photos, runs upon some algorithms, and announces you have 1,432 sheep. Impressed, the farmer says, you are right. Go ahead, take one. So the city slicker loads one of the animals into the back seat of the car. Now, says the farmer, I bet all my sheep against the one you have in your car that I can tell you what you do for your living. A gaming sort, the city slicker says, sure. We're a consultant, says the farmer. Wow, says the consultant. How do you know? Well, says the farmer, you come from nowhere, even though I never asked you to. You drive a flash car and wear a smart suit. You told me something I already knew, and you don't know anything about my business. Just give me back my dog. Because he didn't take a sheep, he took the sheepdog. So he doesn't know what he is doing, but he can calculate what he is doing. He can count it. And actually he doesn't count it, but it's done by this apparatus. So the important part is, again, don't lose reality out of sight. Look at reality and look at how you relate to reality, and look at the end of the day, the use value. And this is behind as well one of the main models we have in economics. I mentioned the general issue of models, one solution for all, and I mentioned as well equilibrium. Equilibrium is one of the core issues we are talking about in economics. We always try, or we always have in mind a certain equilibrium that allows us to understand the world. So this is shaping our understanding. We don't understand the world because then we would not take the dog instead of sheep. But in our terms, it's an animal with 4 legs, looks probably a little bit like a sheep. I have had a very cute one. And then we just get it into the car. Now part of it, and here you are again with the impressions, and you may remember the one quote I gave you from Marx. We start with what we see. We start with our impressions. And our impression is household, private consumers, and workers. Our impression is this, not least, because if we get up in the morning, most likely we will get up in a household. It may be just our own household where we live on our own. It may be the household of a dorm. It may be the family household. And we are consuming something. This is the first thing. We always have some needs. This is what we are interested in. To look after our needs. And then we know at 8 o'clock there is lecture, work. At 8 o'clock there is something I have to turn up in the factory. We are workers. Whatever this worker means. And here we are looking at it in a general terms as well as consumers, private consumers. It is not what we buy for our immediate consumption, but it is going far beyond this. It is about the general issue of consumption. And if you go back to the model, go back to the slides or to the lecture, you have this part, one element of the definition of a model. You can easily change your position, and we always change our positions. Even if you are producing, if you are owning an enterprise, if you are in this way producer, employer, you are at the same time, or you can easily change your role to be consumer. This is behind the model. If it is in reality, let's see, we may end up with a sheepdog in the frying pan, thinking we get sheep. Now there is the market. We talked about the market. And of course, there are different ways of thinking about the market. As consumers, we think about the market and say, actually today I have to go to the shop and buy this and that. Groceries, I need a new pen, I need some paper, I need a new jacket, I need a mobile phone, I need a computer. And I say these different things because now I'm talking as consumer. At the same time, I can see as well that these things, some of these, are actually going to the factor market. I can use my phone, my computer, just for myself. And you all use it for yourself, the computers, tablets you have, but you use it actually as well to produce something, meaning to work in your little enterprise of study, for self-study. So you have a mixed use there. It's private consumption, and it is, for you, a means of production. Then you can go to accounting and say how often, how many hours do I use it for private consumption and how many hours for studying. And then you put it into different sections of your accounting books. Then you say, actually, I can write it off to some extent. And this is what you can. Things for private use, even part of your accommodation, you may be able to write off because you use it as well for business purpose. So factor markets, and here we are talking about the factors of production and not about the means of production. The factor markets includes labor power. It's not only the machinery, it's not only the land, but it is as well labor power. In one way or another, qualified labor power. This is important to keep in mind, it's in one way or another qualified. And you are not sufficiently qualified, you are wrongly qualified, or you are overqualified. This can happen as well. But then you go actually to the firm. We use here the term firm as the institution in which actually production takes place. Now, production is the entire thing. And this is important as well. With this shift I mentioned earlier, industrialization, we have this agglomeration of means of production. Before, you have had your little tools in your cottage, in the back room, in the bedroom, and when it was time, you shifted it a little bit to the side and you have been lying down on the floor. Now you have huge buildings, not just with this one tool or one semi-machine, but you have huge buildings where you have all the machines, the same machines, different machines, being brought together, and you have their administration, their management. The firm is a legal form. And there you have something which is a little bit of paradox, if you want. exactly here you find what we talked about in terms of division of labor. Before you did something in your cottage, you worked a little bit with your own tools and machines. You did the same there in your one with the same machines. Possibly you did something different. You produced the blue wool and you produced the yellow wool. But now you have the division of labor within the firm. Meaning you bring all the producers together in one building, and then you divided the labor within this building. This was about lifestyle. At home you could get up whenever you wanted and work as long as you wanted. Great, isn't it? This freedom. Basically you worked 16 hours to get the money to survive. So you have had this freedom, but you have been forced just to work to get enough money. Now, the machine told you, within the enterprise, this is the time when you turn up. If you come late, come late. We will deduct some of your wages. Again, Frederick Engels' Conditions of the Working Class in England, an excellent book, although a very sad book. It was the entire change as well. Firms, there was a certain hierarchy, and I talked about it previously. We are looking at this as well. A certain way of organizing the process of production. This was, of course, different within an enterprise if compared with the production in your cottage. So relations of production and the mode of production were completely changing. This was a major interruption, if you want, of everything. You had been controlled by these conditions. You had been going to the firm and leaving it, which means another split in the society. We talked about the split of use value and exchange value, but we talked as well about the split between classes. And now you split your life. Work, life. I hate this terminology, but we use it frequently today, work-life balance. In a way, I hate this terminology because it actually, with this, you subscribe to during work, we don't live during work. We are an annex to the machine. We are an annex to the enterprise. And then we leave this, and then we live. Then we live. And you find many different expressions of this. The one core term there is alienation. I'm producing value, but I'm producing exchange value and not use value. I'm not interested in what I'm producing. I'm producing economists. If it would be biologists, fine. Well, not fine because I can't. But at the same time, this is how this thinking works. I'm not relating to what I'm doing in substantial terms, but I'm doing something that the machine tells me to do. This is a dramatic process. Hand in hand going with it the urbanization. People lived near to the enterprises, near to the firm, which meant they moved to the cities. And this was life. This was where life happened, in the cities. And we usually don't think about it, and we are usually not really aware of what happens. We just live our life. We say this is work, this is life. And I was years ago with a friend going for one day off to skiing resort. Well, not a skiing resort, this was the trick. We went off to somewhere in the mountain, climbed up and going down then, which took about 8 hours, 7 hours to climb up and 1 hour to go down. It was great fun. And then she said, actually, you can stop in the next village and go for a coffee or something like this, which we did. This was an old mining town. Old mining town. A young mining town, an active mining town. You see people running around. You have your firms, your enterprises, your buildings. You have people working there. And you have your shops, and you have everything there. We went to a coffee shop, and after about 10 minutes I said, sorry, we have to leave. I can't cope with this. There was no life. There had been old people, and I'm not at all against old people, whatever old means. I'm not the youngest anymore anyway. But these people had actually, they had not been old in terms of age, in terms of years. They had been laid off. There was no enterprise, no mining business in this village, in this town. It was dead. These buildings, firms, had been empty. The young people went, the young people meaning they who could work, who wanted to work, went to other places, to other towns nearby, moved there to work. These people did not have anything they could talk about. What could they talk about? I saw one couple with a pram. Now, it's probably not entirely true, but this was probably the only child of the village in this one pram. So all the older people could say, look, this is our future. One child, one baby, and one young couple. I said, sorry, I have to leave. I can't cope with this. I feel like being on a graveyard. But on a graveyard where the people are still alive. So it is this social climate, this social setting that changes completely. And then you have, of course, other things going on in the same direction. That hygiene means something completely different in a city if you compare it with your rural setting. What it means is a different story. Be aware of it. I don't want to say, and we cannot say, the good old times, then everything was better and people lived their nice life and could organize themselves. The hygienic conditions on the countryside had been a disaster. The hygienic conditions in the cities had been a disaster. At the same time, with this, with urbanization, you have had new opportunities to organize things. I lived in the countryside. I have had my private well, meaning I didn't dig. But I got my water directly out of the ground. There was no central supply. And there was, in a way, no possibility to get public supply of clean water from A to B, which had been 20 miles. In a city, you can do it. Economies of scale. We'll come back to it later. But there it is worthwhile to do it for 100,000 people. For one person living somewhere, you wouldn't do it. I had been lucky that the water was clean. But you don't have always these conditions. So you may have to go to the next river. You don't have water at all. You may have to go to the next river and collect it. Going half a day there, going half a day back. So there are opportunities. At the same time, especially in the beginning, urbanization, there had been this disaster, the dramatic changes of people moving into a new environment, setting up a new environment. All with this one purpose in mind: we are producing for the market. This is the purpose of everything. This is what we are interested in. We are not interested in exchanging goods. We produce something, you produce something, you produce something, and you exchange. Of course, this happens. But the production in the firm, the orientation on the finished good, is based on the idea of market for goods and services. Pull up. I gave you the text. Read it again. Read all these texts again and again. Don't take for granted what is written in there. You find different positions. And all these texts have only one part of the entire picture. But it is important to get these different pieces of a jigsaw. Market for goods and services. And this is something as well that is challenging for us. What do we put into the firm? Accounting? Or is there one firm producing steel, another firm, steel is good, another firm producing accounting services, and they exchange here? Or do we have steel production, accounting, possibly a kindergarten, looking after the kids of the people who are working there? Different ways of dealing with the challenge to bring things into the entire societal context, into the different firms. Goods and services. To some extent, it all happens here. To some extent, it happens in different firms. And this is something, coming back to the definition issue, means and ends, scarcity. And here you have actually what we call economies of scale. If you have a small enterprise, if you have a very small enterprise, you have your little cottage, you say, don't have money, I don't need books for this, I don't have seed anymore, I don't need books for it, I know it, I see it, it wouldn't be much anyway. If I have a large enterprise, I need somebody who does the books. And if I have a very large enterprise, I may say, we should do the books as well. No. There are some experts, we buy them. We don't have to look after our books. There's a service enterprise, a service provider who does it. I don't know how it works in all the details. I don't know even the ending of CSOFT. If you go to the computer, the URL. What is the website, the URL of CSOFT? Does anybody know it? URL is what you see in the computer here, www, and what's that? But there may be something like csoft.cn. Maybe, I don't know. It is not said that there is somebody here on campus or under the head of CSOFT who actually manages this. If you look at my email address, that is my URL. I own it. If I should do this tiny thing on administering it, I'm lost. I buy something, who does it? It's relatively cheap. He is very good. I write an email, listen, something wrong? Okay, 5 minutes later it's done. Now 5 minutes later it's done, if he is available. It's a small enterprise. It may be that he is sleeping, and then I have to wait a day. If I have it in my enterprise, I don't have to wait a day because there is always somebody working for it. But for me, it is not worthwhile to have it. For those small, tiny, occasional problems, I would not be able and not be willing to employ somebody. So for a large enterprise, it is worthwhile to employ somebody or to say, let's do the job for me, for us, we can't do everything. And this is what you actually find as well. Within these firms, you have the different departments, different sections. And sometimes you do exactly this. You say, we leave it to others, but as well we do something that is not our core business. We do the financing. Siemens, IBM, large enterprises make more money today out of finance than they do of production. So you always have to be careful if you see a label, Peugeot, car manufacturer, what do they actually do? Something you don't know exactly. Because sometimes it is actually that they get something from other enterprises who think this is really good car, this is this and that make, and it is not made by them. I was in a car manufacturer in Barcelona once, and they told us, actually we can't show you, it was Seat, we can't show you how we produce a Seat, we are producing currently for Audi, which is their competitor. Which is a little bit weird. This is then detailed economics for advanced studies. But at least be aware of it, what actually happens. Then you have the markets for goods and services within the firms and outside, finished products, whatever this finishing line means, and then you go back actually to the private households, private consumers, to the households and to the workers. They buy these products. Of course, a worker will not buy machines, but then you go back to the model and you see there the producer can easily change and he is now consumer. This is what happens. And in reality happens, but at the same time, mind what I said on models. There are models. You cannot easily switch your roles and be one or the other. Private consumers, households are as well public households. It's not only you and your small little household. Back to history. We are getting to colorful life. And we have our little graph, and it's always nice. there are different ways of looking at equilibrium and looking at developments and different curves and waves. I mentioned Kondratiev, and there's this Colin Clark. And he did basically the same as Kondratiev, looking at statistics, looking at what is actually happening in society and what do people produce. And saying the old society, not ancient society, but old societies, even if we have market production, they are producing primary goods. It's primary activities, which means predominantly farming, including fish farming, including looking for raw material. So what you need from nature, what you can get from nature to do your job, to survive. This was predominant. Go back to Robinson Crusoe, we talked about him. This was what he was doing. He was not producing tools or services. He was producing what he needed to eat. Then you have secondary activities. And secondary activities is, by and large, industrial production. You can go into details here, but this is not what we will do. You start actually not at zero. If you look at it, you start at the highest point in terms of primary activities. At the end of the day, it means there's only primary activity. And in the extreme it is. You don't have tools, you don't have anything, you just produce. With secondary activities, industrial, on this industrial level, you start already, you make a huge jump. Industrial revolution. It's kind of from nothing, then you start with 20, and then you go up to, I don't know where. You have a huge point, but if you go in history, talking through this, you find the point that it is going down. Now you have to be careful. Actually before as well. Saying it goes down, it goes up, and here down again, does not mean in absolute terms. We still produce, actually we don't still produce, we produce today more agricultural products or more results of primary activity than we have had previously. But now the productivity increased, it's easier to produce, so we invest less into this area. Industrial production, it still exists and it is still hugely important. But in relative terms, it goes down. So always have this difference in mind, absolute and relative. Then we have the tertiary activities. And this is something we are usually thinking about, service industries. Sometimes you find in sociology actually the term of service societies. Production is not important anymore, but it's office work, it's all this. I was once walking with a colleague through Moscow, and he said, it's so difficult to find orientation today. Earlier it was very simple. You have had this company there, you have this enterprise factory there, and you know, okay, at the steel firm, at the steel enterprise, you are there, and then you turn to the left until the car manufacturer or whatever. Today you have office buildings. So again, it has huge social impact as well. Coming from the farm, going to the city, to the industrial city, and then going to the tertiary sector, to the service city. Office buildings, office work. with its own, if you want, with its own laws. This is important in technological terms. It's important in terms of what economic activity means. As I said, the simple example, for my little cottage farming, I don't need an accountant. For a large enterprise, I need an accounting office, accountant's office. For the little money I have to go, I don't know how often, to the bank. Actually, usually I go to the ATM and get some money out of it. There's not much money anyway. If I deal with thousands and thousands and thousands every hour, this is a huge business. And this is a huge difference. And at the end of the day, I don't have time to do anything else. I only look after my money. Not there yet. And then you have the quarterly, okay, here it's only the quarterly activities. Important first is the point of deindustrialization. We have this industrial revolution, and then we have this term of the turn of, it's not about industrial production, but it is about service production. It's again a little bit contested. And then we have this quaternary activities, and in the meantime we are talking about quinary activities as well, which is actually not, this is at the bottom line, it's not directly linked to production. Because all these tertiary activities are more or less directly linked to production. There are some services, of course, they are not linked to production, although they are indirectly linked to production, meaning childcare, you look after the children that somebody else can work. I mentioned this example before. Now we have these quaternary activities that are further away from this process of production. This is important to see where potentially the future development will go. But it means at the same time, you can only look into the future if you look from where we came. How did things develop? Never simply prolong these lines, because then you would have failed here. Always be aware of the difference between relative and absolute terms, because in absolute terms we produce more than we did before, but we need less. And we need a break now, and we'll see for the seminar.